Premamai Sri Sri Thakur, Paramaradha Jagat Janani Sri Sri Barama, Param Pujyapada Sri Sri Varda, Param Pujyapada Acharya Dev Sri Sri Dada, Param Pujyapada Sri Sri Babaida, my heartiest Ra and Jai Guru to all Guru brothers. First of all, I must admit that I am not used to speaking in forums like this, and it is my privilege that my close friend Bashuri has asked me to talk, and because he has asked me, I could not refuse, though I have very little to really share in terms of new things maybe. I do not deserve any of the things that he has mentioned about me, and actually I disagree that I have actually done anything in that sense. It is my privilege though I have actually not done anything for him, for Sri Sri Thakur, for Thakur Bari, the infinite love that I have got, the forgivingness with which they have embraced me with all my faults, that has been my privilege. I have failed to live up to whatever he has asked me to do, but that has not stopped them from giving me a shelter at their place, at their holy feet. And this is all I can say. My association with Sri Sri Thakur has not been from childhood. So for whatever I have been blessed with in terms of at least being physically able to be in proximity with them, though I have not understood anything, I owe it to my mother, who has been initiated for a long time. And I have a very deep sense of indebtedness to Bashuri, who has played a very pivotal role in shaping up my thoughts in some way. He has shared with me all that he has been reading, and those were in some sense formative years for me. So I can only see that I am indebted to a lot of people for whatever I have got. There is nothing that I have given back in return, but still, because I have been asked to say a few things, therefore I have obliged. I do not know most of you in person, but I hope that this will provide me an opportunity to come in close contact with some of you, at least in near future. Hearing of Sri Sri Thakur and speaking of him, both are sources of infinite joy. Just like our parents never get old for us, we never get tired though we hear the same stories and talk about the same stories. Similarly, there may not be new things that are told about Sri Sri Thakur, but he never becomes old for us. Every time the same story is shared, we cherish him in a new way. Sri Sri Thakur has been sometimes referred to as abnormally normal. He had no dreams of establishing a big institution. He never had dreams of making a big satsang, hundreds and thousands of people, millions of followers around the world. That was never his goal. He was attentive to the last detail. There is a plumber far away. He is working hard to meet his daily needs. He is wearing a torn banyan. Sri Sri Thakur calls him near. and asks him why his banyan is torn. And he says, I'm poor Thakur. I cannot afford nice clothes for me. So Sri Thakur asks everyone around him to pour in some money for him. And because he asked, lots of people feel privileged and in comes a lot of money. Sri Thakur hands over the entire cash to that man. And he has never seen so much cash in his whole life. So he says, I do not need so much money, Thakur, for buying a banyan. And Sri Thakur says, no, but there must be others in your family, your wife, your children. You can buy something for them as well. And the man says, even if I buy something for them, Thakur, I'll still have plenty left. I do not need so much of money. And Sri Thakur persists, and this time with a question that shocks him. Sri Thakur asks him, do you drink? And he is taken aback. And this man confesses to Sri Thakur that he is taken to drinking. Then Sri Thakur asks him to buy as much liquor as he can that night and enjoy as much as he can throughout the night. Now people around Sri Thakur are surprised because this is the same Thakur who has insisted that we should not take non-vegetarian food, we should not get addicted to smoking and alcohol. And here is the same Thakur asking this poor man to go and buy as much liquor as he wants. But people who stayed on for the next day came to know something that they could not imagine. The man came back early morning next day and he was in tears. He fell at the feet of Sri Thakur and said, forgive me, Thakur. And he was crying profusely. So Sri Thakur asked him what happened. And then he said, I bought as much liquor as I wanted. I came back home. I gave those clothes to my children and my wife for the first time in my life. And then when my children and my wife came to me, my children were hugging me for the first time. I experienced love that I have never experienced before. And I did not want to come out of that. And because I did not want to break that experience, I did not want a disruption in the continuity of that sense of blissfulness. I took all my bottles of wine and threw them away. And I'm never going to drink again. So, in one night, a man was reformed. I think this divine love defines Sri Thakur. If there is anything that is absolutely profound, that has touched people, this is this divine love. We give tons and tons of advice to people about what they should and should not do, why they should and should not drink, and so on and so forth. And it comes to no avail. And here is Sri Thakur penetrating deep as possible into the cause of our misery and working out a solution that really works and works over the course of just one night. I think it is this deep affinity towards the cause, towards why we do what we do, that separates Sri Thakur and makes him stand alone in the history of mankind. There is no comparison. If there is something that is rational about our being, something that tends to ask deepest questions about our existence, this is the place where solutions are. There is no other go. We tend to put hats of scientists, of rational thinkers, of intellectuals, and in the process we deceive ourselves. We think we are trying to work out reasons, and we do not fail to see the darkness that lies just below the very lamp that we attempt to shine throughout our lives. The scientist is rational in his field of inquiry. There is no doubt about that. But when he comes out of the lab and when he asks questions about his own life, when he tends to get angry at someone, is he asking the same questions that he asked about the observations that he had in his laboratory? I doubt so. When we tend to lose our cool, I tend to lose my cool many a time. I can understand that I am not rational. I am not trying to understand the other person's viewpoint. It is this irrational existence deep within that is the cause of misery. We are pretending to be rational, but that rationality exists in a very limited field, and we exercise that rationality very conveniently to deceive ourselves and to project an image of ourselves that is different from what we really are. And what Sri Thakur has attempted is to bring ourselves back to this state of normalcy. A person is perfectly normal when he is rational. And that is our real self. We say the word realization. When we say crystallization, we mean something becoming a crystal. When we say realization, it means becoming real. To discover that simplicity that defines us, that is our inherent trait, that is awaiting to be expressed and is lying deep within. And that is the source of joy. That simplicity is the source of joy. And it is joy that we want at the end of the day. Whatever one is doing, I think we are looking for bliss. Simplicity, I just get reminded of one nice anecdote. It was told to me by Dr. Kriti Mandal. He is a doctor at the Satsang Charitable Hospital. Many of us have taken initiations, the holy initiation. And actually today is the Independence Day. And the truest sense of independence I feel is getting reminded of the fact that there is only one contract we have in our life. I have only one contract in my life. I have only signed one contract. I have not signed many. And that one contract is the contract signed at the time of initiation with Sri Thakur. There is no other contract. All other contracts are negotiable. I can have a contract at my office, my professional life, with many other places, but those are negotiable. As long as you are engaged in an activity with them, you have that contract. You can, at any point of time, say, this is not working well with me, and come out of it. But this contract with Sri Thakur is the only one that is non-negotiable till the last breath. That oath. And this defines independence. That this is the only point of attraction. This is the only point of obligation. There is no other obligation. All other obligations are there because he has imposed this obligation on me. I have to respect my seniors in office because he likes me to do that way, but not for my personal end. As long as his end is satisfied, that's fine. As long as it is not, the moment it is not, it comes back to me, comes back hard and heavy. So, simplicity is to have an obligation, to have a single love center that elevates. And complexity is to have multiple love centers, is to have multiple obligations. And it is this fragmentation of personality that results from divided attention, from the fact that we try to please many at the cost of one, that brings in disorder, brings in misery, chaos, and everything else. This is what I have experienced in my life. Every time I have trodden that road, this is what has resulted. So anyway, coming back to the story the anecdote of Dr. Kriti Mandal, the simple man. So he went out for initiation in one remote village and he met a hawker who used to sell things by the roadside, maybe, not a very wealthy man. And this man, he took initiation, but he was somewhat different from the others in that he took every word of initiation at face value, be it Ishtabriti, be it the chanting of the holy name, be it Yajan, Yajan, whatever. He said, this is the oath I have taken, so I have to do it from this day. Simple man. And that is his straightforward idea. If I take him as my ideal, this is what I have to do. There is no compromise. There is no second part. So this man, true to his heart, he goes out, and the next day when he tries to sell something outside, he gradually discovers a process of change within him. This man sometimes used to buy things at a certain price and sell it at twice the price. But when, after taking initiation, when he used to do that, he used to feel something is not going quite right inside him. And at some point, it began to torment him in such a way that he could not carry on with this profession at all. Then he called up Dr. Kriti Mandal and said, this is the problem I am facing, what do I do? And Dr. Kriti Mandal said, okay, I'll talk to I don't have a solution right now. I will talk to Sri Sri Babaida and I'll let you know. And I think in the morning time when Sri Sri Babaida was present, Dr. Kriti Mandal offered this thing to Sri Sri Babaida and requested for a solution. And Sri Sri Babaida replied that this is his livelihood. So ask him to continue as he is continuing. Only just before leaving every day, he should offer a prayer to Sri Sri Thakur and say, whatever I say through my mouth, right, whatever comes, should be according to your wish. He should just say this much and get out and then do whatever he wants. So Dr. Kriti Mandal conveyed this to this poor man and he did accordingly. And then something very interesting happened. After a few days, when he started doing this, he found that as he was selling the things to people, he used to tell them very simply and in a straightforward way, this is the price at which I bought it. This is the price at which I am selling it. If you want, you can take it from me. And people liked that straightforward approach. His business flourished like never before. And this man was free from guilt, the feeling of guilt that tormented him from within. He took Sri Sri Thakur's initiation at face value. He took Sri Sri Babaidada's words at face value. And he could see the result in his own life. This is the laboratory in which we have to test things. And the simple man passes this test easily. Swami Vivekananda experimented so much with his life, and at the end he said that carrying out the commands of the Guru without any hesitation is the only path forward. What more is there in life? The man with simple faith, the man who has given up everything for him, has gotten everything aplenty, 100 times, 1,000 times over. This is not an experience of a single person. Sri Thakur has been surrounded by people of different profiles. They have come from different social backgrounds, different educational backgrounds, and they have all interacted with him differently. And he has fulfilled each of them to the best of their instinctive capabilities, their distinctive traits. And that's why we call him the universal fulfiller. When a very rich foreigner comes and says, Sri Thakur, I can give you millions, what would you ask for me? I am convinced that what you say is correct. Sri Thakur gets up very interested. This man thinks Sri Thakur is going to ask so much of him. And finally, Sri Thakur says, if you can give me, are you sure you can give me anything that I ask? And this man keeps on persisting, yes, I can. And finally, all that Sri Thakur asks is a letter every month from abroad saying that he and his family are all doing well, with the condition that he should not lie. That is all he wanted. Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das, the great freedom fighter, he came and found solutions to his problems. And such a man was very rare at that time. He could see face to face with the British, and there was hardly a case that he ever lost. He was one of the best advocates of his time, never could bow down his head to anyone. This man decided that he had to be the disciple of Sri Thakur. He was convinced that this is the place. One day when Sri Thakur persisted that he should stay with him for a few more days, or maybe another day, C.R. Das said that I cannot because there is no one to substitute me at my workplace. And Sri Thakur says, is it not strange that you have not created even one person who is worthy of replacing you in your work? And that was a moment of revelation for C.R. Das. After long drawn experiences with Sri Thakur, he makes up his mind to take initiation, and he goes to Sri Thakur's mother, and Thakur's mother refuses to give him initiation, saying that these are political people, and one day they will have this idea that they are doing a favor to Satsang by taking initiation. And C.R. Das replies, the head of C.R. Das never bows down, but once it bows down, it can never be lifted. And then he takes initiation. This man, this giant of a man, he used to cry like a baby when his train used to leave Ishwardi station, where he used to come and meet Sri Thakur at Himayatpur. What did he find there? Similarly was the case with the poet Hemchandra Mukhopadhyay, Hem Kavi in short. who was fallen to drinking. And Sri Thakur one night stayed awake full night. Sri Thakur himself used to give him bottles of liquor and became his best friend. And one night, Sri Thakur was awake for the whole night. In the morning, Hemkavi discovered that he was lying in Sri Thakur's lap, and Sri Thakur's white cloth was soiled in his vomit. And out of repentance, he went and threw away the bottles of liquor in the river, and that transformed his life. I think one of the biggest impediments in coming to Sri Thakur is intellect, because intellect has this tendency to deceive. When we say faith in Sri Thakur, we mean faith in the same sense that we have faith in our mother, that she wishes the best for us. And it is in that sense that we have faith in Sri Thakur. It is trust without reservations. Today we know that even in science, we need faith to proceed. Everyone who has practiced a little bit of science knows that unless you assume that the universe is rational, unless you have a leap of faith that it is mathematically describable, you cannot form models of the world. You do not understand nature. For any little thing that we do, we need a leap of faith. Sri Thakur distinguished himself by being perfectly rational in the sense that he has made this leap of faith conditional on just two aspects, being and becoming. All that we need to believe to follow Sri Thakur really is that we want to be, we want to exist, and we want to evolve to a better person. And that is true from the smallest creature to the tallest human being. The urge to exist and the urge to perfect oneself. If one just believes in these two, then there is no other barrier in accepting him as one's guru and taking his initiation and proceeding in his path. One is guaranteed to express himself in the fullest way and get as much as he deserves from this life in the way of fulfillment. Everything else that we use are mere play of words. We say words like atheists, agnostics, and so on and so forth, believers. These words mean nothing because they are not connected to our world of experiences. What do we understand of the three-letter word God? We do not know. We can experience that we are being loved, that's all. Beyond that is something that we are talking about, but we cannot comprehend. We are just playing with words. Imagine a 4-year-old girl who hears from her parents that Titanic is a romantic movie. She has not experienced romance in her life. She now enters into an argument with another friend of hers around the same age who says that Titanic is tragic. And both of them engage in a war of words. One says it's romantic, the other says it's tragic. Once they grow up, they understand that both are right. Till the time it comes to our world of experiences, we are only using words that others have used. What is the value of that? Words agnostics, believers, agnostic, atheists, they mean nothing. Similarly, when I pick up a call and talk to someone in US. I say it's day and he says it's night, and we never have an argument because we understand that the reality is one. It is the same thing. So the words used to describe it may be different. What Sri Thakur is beckoning us to is not jugglery with words. He is beckoning us to a world of experiences where we feel fulfilled from within, where we feel love inside. Until this jugglery of words has come to an end, we never have answers to our questions. The solution to our questions is in the dissolving of the questions themselves. And that happens when you come in contact with love supreme. The questions do not remain at all. Acharya Dev Sri Sri Dada once talked about this thing very nicely. He was saying that we sometimes say God is omnipresent. But what is omnipresence? It is just a word. When one is in a state of connectedness with Sri Thakur, with one's living ideal, then the true test of omnipresence comes. If he was right there beside me, then would I have been saying and doing the same things that I am saying and doing now? That is the test of whether I believe he is omnipresent or not. Other than that, everything that we talk about religion fails to affect our lives because it does not become operational. What Sri Thakur has done is to make religion, or whatever we call it, operational in life. It is not something that is just merely an intellectual excursion, something that is a matter of deliberation, something that I think for a few minutes and then after some time, a nice joke, some nice spiritual quote that I get share on WhatsApp, and then I get back to my life as usual. He has integrated that with every breath. And this is how the living ideal brings in a transformation in someone who is sincerely adhered to him. All of us have deep existential questions. There is no one without that. All of us ask the questions, who am I? Where is this life leading me towards? What is the purpose of this life? And we keep wondering about where the solutions could be. These existential questions are outside the scope of science. This is known by scientists. These are the famous Nobel laureate Peter Medawar has written a book called Limits of Science. Which are the questions that are outside the scope of science? In fact, I am reminded of this famous analogy by the mathematical physicist Paul Kinghorn. So he put this very nicely. He said, if I have water that's boiling, then the question of science is why it is boiling. And the answer is in the form of an explanation. For example, molecules are moving far away from each other and so on and so forth. But what science does not attempt to answer is that the water is boiling because I want to have a cup of tea. That is the meaning. That is what has made the water boil in the first place. That answer is outside the scope of science. And that answer has to be discovered from within. I think the association with Sri Thakur brings out the urge to sincerely find the solution to existential questions. We ask those questions, but then we find a life that is untouched by it, can worship a God of the skies, and that can remain in the skies and not affect our lives in an operational sense. Sri Thakur binds our individual life with our personal life, our family life, our professional life into one single whole, where He alone stands as the object of fulfillment. When the object of fulfillment is high, brings about elevation of the self. Sri Thakur never talked about detachment, he talked about attachment. And that is the seed to transformation. A girl may be spending 12 to 14 hours sleeping, and she might be taking a resolve that from tomorrow I'll change my schedule. And for 3 days, she might be successful. After that, she falls back to the old trap. Why? Because intellect fails to bring about change. But once this girl gets married, she has a baby, she stays awake all night for the baby. And she doesn't even realize that that transformation, which could not be brought about by intellect, has come because of emotions. Such is the power of emotions in our lives. And emotions, if they are invested towards the supreme ideal, whose only goal is to elevate us, then life changes for good. All the different strands of our life, which get dispersed in different directions, time and efforts get dissipated in various ways. They come together and become orchestrated towards the service of the one single one who matters in our life. Otherwise, someone at 20 would serve his boss, at 30 would serve his wife, at 40 his children, and keep going on. And at 80 he might look back and reflect and have regrets on how he has spent his life. Why? Why not have the same ideal at 20, at 30, at 40, and at 80 as well? Then everything is orchestrated in the same direction. And this is what brings in intensity in life and vigor. And this brings about fulfillment. I think Sri Thakur has shown us the way towards this fulfillment. Very simple things have brought in profound changes in lots of people. And when I go and spend a little bit of time at Devghar, I am kind of surprised by this immense simplicity which sometimes eludes us. When someone comes and asks Sri Babaida, my child is not obeying me, Babaida's answer is simple. Did you have a contract with your child before his birth or before her birth that he or she will obey you? There was no such contract, and therefore this expectation that we are having of our child is irrational. Similarly, expectations that we carry in our heads, which are the main causes of all the different miseries that torment us, any of them, if we deeply introspect, are essentially irrational. When Sri Thakur is there at the center, cooperation, interestedness becomes spontaneous, like cells in the body which have diverse roles, but at their heart they share the same genetic code. Similarly, as humans, we share the same identity at our core, in that we want to be and we want to become. And when one consecrates oneself to the cause of the ideal, then harmony with the environment becomes a spontaneous byproduct of that offering to Sri Thakur. Like cells in the human body, they cooperate with each other and find fulfillment in realizing the true meaning and purpose of life, rather than merely theorizing about it. Sri Aurobindo once was telling about the non-cooperation movement that played a pivotal part in our independence struggle. And he said that maybe we are carrying that legacy of non-cooperation even today. So the seed of cooperation is to accept him as the Father and move on. There is nothing in life that can actually stop one from achieving all that he intends to do. Such is the power of human life. There is absolutely nothing for someone who knows where he is going. And Sri Thakur has shown us the path of that infinite courage. He has shown us how to leave the baggage behind and move ahead. And the baggage that keeps dragging us is the one that snatches us away from the bliss that he has always promised to offer us. So this is all that is there. On Independence Day, a lot of us is concerned about problems in our country, corruption, so on and so forth, national integration. The more pertinent questions for me is corruption at my local level, my individual level. Are my thoughts, word, and deed coordinated? When they are not, there is a corruption. When they are not aligned, there is a failure of an integration of a self. So I am losing my integrity because my thought, word, and deed are not coordinated. So at that level, as one works, and then one puts attention to the aspects of social life, Sri Thakur's emphasis on marriage, education, and above everything else, initiation. Our lives become ideal-centric, and the way we look at things change. Things remain just as they are, but the tears that wash our eyes cleanse them, and the world appears more beautiful, more livable, more lovely. To one who has not taken a guru in his life, taking a guru looks like only an incremental change. But one who has taken guru in life, I think the difference is like one who is blind and one who sees. The one who is blind thinks that the man who sees has only an incremental advantage because he can go from a location A to location B faster. But the man who sees, for him, the world is different. He enjoys colors, he enjoys movies, he enjoys everything that the blind man can only theorize about. He has no way of conveying to the blind man his experience with words. And we cannot convey. I cannot convey what I have got from Sri Thakur in words. I am alive today because of him. I have gone through several phases in my life which tried to snatch away my life from me. I am there because of him. What will I talk about? Lots of books have been written about God, about a lot of things, and we theorize things. But when that same Brahma appears clad in mud and clay, comes disguised in that form, how many could embrace him? Sri Thakur did. And he left behind him, the Acharya legacy. Sri Dada, Sri Babaida, Sri Aurobindo. They are living embodiments of Sri Thakur. They are upholding us. Because they are there, I am there. Otherwise, I am not there. I think it is impossible to comprehend him, but like little children, we can extend our two hands. When we extend our two hands, our mother knows that we are trying to reach out for her. So when we reach out our two little hands to him through Ishtapriti, through Yajan, whatever little can be done, he takes us in his divine embrace. With this, I hope I have consumed more time than I should have. I really hope to meet you one day, and I wish a very fulfilled life ahead of you for all of you. Jai.